Good morning. I'm Anna Marie De La Vega. Thank you for joining us today. This is Focus. Our guest today is Shannon Jeames with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Now, I want you to tell us, first of all, because you have like a full-time job.
Yes.
Otherwise, and you took time out to be with us today. So what do you do, Shannon?
I am a director of operations support with the Department of Safety and Homeland Security. I work in the driver's license division, so what most people would call the DMV.
Yeah.
I do administrative project management and things like that for the department. So, and sometimes I get to go out in the field and actually help issue driver's licenses, which is really fun and exciting.
Is it really? Or are you just being sarcastic?
No, I like getting to go out and meet people and talk to them, and I probably talk to them too much because I slow everybody down.
It's you. Shannon is the entire reason why it takes a long time at the DMV. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, I think what you called earlier, you said it's your kind of your side hustle.
Yes.
Is the, what is it called?
The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
AFSP.
Mm-hmm.
American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
We want to research this and find out, what causes it, what are the warning signs, what are the risk factors. It has really grown into this full-service organization. AFSP tackles suicide in many different ways. We provide education, so we go out and do educational programs. We have one called Talk Saves Lives, which is basically an overview of suicide. It tells you about the risk factors, warning signs, and it also tells you what you can do to help somebody who's in crisis. Mm-hmm. AFSP also does, we table at events. We go out and hand out information at events. Like, for example, we have a really great partnership with the Nashville Sounds. We go out every year for their mental health night and for their Pride Night and table. So we work with them. We're trying to do a lot of work with the African American faith community because that's a community that we don't have a lot of contact with, that we're trying to get inroads with.
I need to hook you up with a group called Black Men Vent 2.
Oh, yeah.
It's a father-son formed organization. They are doing wonderful things in this world.
Yeah,
and
we'd love to have that contact.
I will do that. Okay.
Absolutely.
And when you say you table at events, means you have a table with handouts and talk to people.
Correct.
At events.
Correct.
Okay.
We go to conferences. We do advocacy at the state and federal level. So we have a state capitol day every year where we go out and talk to our state legislators. And then every year AFSP also hosts a federal public policy conference where we go and speak to our representatives and senators in Washington, D.C. and talk to them about legislation that's smart for mental health and smart for suicide prevention. We have programs for suicide loss survivors. Every November, the Saturday before Thanksgiving, is International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day. Senator Harry Reid, started that program because he lost his father to suicide. So we have a program every year on the Saturday before Thanksgiving where we show a film. The AFSP produces a film every year with survivors, and then we do a panel discussion, breakout groups, and that one is a little bit more low-key and intimate for folks to come out and kind of gather with other people who've experienced loss and kind of have some fellowship with them.
Okay. So those are some of the things that the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention does.
Yes.
Okay, let's kind of dig into some of those. First of all, let's look at what the situation is as far as suicides. Are we doing better than years past, worse than years past? Did COVID have anything to do with it? Where are we now?
So Tennessee, our rate of suicide is a little bit higher than the national average. Tennessee has I pulled some numbers. So 2023 was the most recent year I could find. Tennessee's suicide rate is about 17.7 deaths per 100,000, or the national average is 14.9. So we are a little bit above average for that. But as a trend, we're starting to see suicide rates go down across the country. Not a lot, but a little. So we do feel like we're making some inroads there.
Good.
But it's still like the 12th leading cause of death in the United States. It was in the top 10, so it's fallen out of the top 10.
Oh, wow.
But the thing is, when you look at other causes of death, they're going down much more rapidly than suicide. So, we have work to do still.
Yeah.
And you see more deaths in rural areas. So one of the reasons why Tennessee is probably higher is because we have a lot more rural area. People in rural areas tend to die by suicide at a higher rate than people who live in urban areas. And that's mostly because in rural areas, it's harder to access mental health care. People tend to be more isolated if they live out in the country. They don't have the supports in place that people in a larger city might have.
They can't go to the community center.
Right.
They just don't see anybody.
Yeah. They just, and there's just not a lot of mental health professionals out in urban areas. So it might just be that there's nobody within a 50-mile radius of them that even provides care. So it's hard to, it's hard to find somebody. And then, a lot of insurance. A few years ago, there was something passed through Congress called mental health parity. And what that is that your health insurance must cover mental health services the same way it covers physical illnesses.
Really?
But it's not implemented uniformly across the country. So some people don't know that, so they don't know to ask for it. And insurance companies are not likely to tell you, hey, we'll pay for this if you don't ask them. So, but like, for example, I work for the state. We have a mental health insurance program. So I go to the psychiatrist every month and my insurance pays for that.
Wow.
So
we might have that with our insurance already.
Yeah, you should. You should. I recommend everybody listening to this to ask your employer about your health care coverage and what it covers as far as mental health, behavioral access, because you probably have coverage and don't even know about it.
Well, what about those of us who are getting our insurance from the marketplace, rather?
It should cover as well. Any health insurance is supposed to cover mental health the same as it covers physical health.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay, good to know. Thank you. That's very valuable because I think a lot of people feel like they've lost most of what coverage they had when they had to go, if they lost a job and they had to get insurance on their own. If they got off their parents' insurance, they had to get insurance on their own, or not getting the benefits from the company, and they had to get it on their own. They should have some mental health coverage. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to check into that. And so you mentioned people who are more isolated or in more rural areas tending to have a higher suicide rate. What about other groups, age groups, genders, anything like that?
So men die by suicide at a rate 3.8 times higher than women, but women are more likely to attempt. So that comes into play because women tend to use less lethal means when they attempt suicide. So they tend to go for, pills or something like that, where there's an opportunity to get to them and save them before they die. Men tend to use more lethal means like firearms.
Whoa.
So
so men die almost 4 times as much as women, but women try it more.
Right.
And any certain age groups?
We worry about our young people, and young people ages 10 to 24, it's like the second or third leading cause of death in Tennessee. So,
oh, my gosh.
The problem is so much more prevalent than people realize. Like, the number of suicides in Tennessee tends to be double the number of homicides in any given year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And we focus on trying to not have people kill each other.
Right.
But we're killing ourselves at a higher rate.
Yeah. I mean, you can turn on the news any night of the week and see stories about, so-and-so was shot or this person was killed, but you almost never hear about suicides on the news. It's just, it's still a subject that's taboo. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. It makes them uncomfortable. So unless it's somebody famous who dies by suicide, you just tend not to hear about it very often.
Wow, that's right.
When Robin Williams died, when Kate Spade died, when Anthony Bourdain died, those were all high-profile suicides. And when there is a high-profile death like that, then we can sometimes see contagion from that, where we see outbreaks of suicides in folks that aren't famous. So
contagion.
Yeah.
And I feel like I read that happens among young people.
Yes. Yeah, it can.
And what like if a classmate or somebody at your school commits suicide?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm glad you said that.
Why is that?
Well, when we go out and talk to people about suicide prevention, about awareness, one of the things that we like to talk about is the way we talk about suicide.
Oh.
Language matters. So a lot of times when you see a story on the news or you read an article, a lot of people say that somebody committed suicide.
Right.
And we try to encourage people to say things like they died by suicide or they took their lives because of the negative connotation of the word commit, because you commit a crime or you commit a sin. And we don't want to stigmatize that death any more than we have to. We also don't like to say things like a successful suicide attempt because that's not something you want to say somebody was successful at. So we just call it a suicide attempt.
Yes.
Or we say they completed suicide.
Oh.
But the way we talk about it really matters.
Yeah.
And you know, trying not to stigmatize that person or their memory or make that family feel like it's something they can't talk about. And it's also another reason that when we're doing, you know, things like this interview, or if we're going to be talking about it on TV, we have safe reporting guidelines that we send out to the media all the time about these are the do's of talking about suicide and these are the don'ts, just so that they know. Whenever I'm listening to the radio or if I'm watching a news story and I hear somebody say somebody committed suicide, sometimes I'll shoot them an email and say, hey, you know, could you, there's a podcast that I listen to that I love a lot. And it's called, I forgot the name of it. But anyways, he says commit a lot.
Oh.
And so I sent him an email and he actually emailed me back and said, thank you for bringing that to me. Because people want to be, you know, mindful of it and respectful of it. But I find that it's such an uncomfortable topic for people. So the more we can talk about it, the less stigmatized it is, the more other people can seek help for it. Because I think a lot of times people don't seek help for it because they're ashamed of the way they're feeling, or they might feel like they're the only person who's ever felt this way. You know, when you're down in a dark hole, it's hard to see past that. So the more we can talk about it and normalize it, and let people know that it's okay if you're struggling with your mental health. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out.
Yeah.
And we can't help you if we don't know you need help. But it's also important for us to be looking for those signs so that we can reach out.
And so when we talk about it, you said the phrases to use are
died by suicide is usually what I will say instead of commit, or they took their life.
And that's part of what keeps families from adding it to the obituary.
Yeah.
Because the stigma, they did this bad thing, they committed this. If we say it that way, we are adding to that guilt and that shame as well as the hurt that they have.
Yeah, and a lot of newspapers will not print in the obituary if it's a suicide. They'll print the obituary, but they won't print the cause of death. I know of people who submitted an obituary and said they died by suicide, and the paper made them change it, wouldn't let them print it that way, because that's how bad the stigma still is.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
And yet they'll say, well, a gunman killed 4 people.
Right, and give you all the gory details about it.
But,
shot in the head,
yeah,
done this, done that, but not suicide.
To bring awareness, but not make it be so shameful and guilty feeling that it can't be talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, now what are some of the other do's and don'ts when talking about it?
Just
what do you send out to the media?
We try to send out, so if there's a death by suicide and we're contacted about it, we always try to send out warning signs, risk factors, just because obviously there's nothing we can do about this person's death because it's already occurred, but sending out information on resources and where people can go to find help, because, you know, that person is gone, but their family members are going to struggle. And we see that when somebody dies by suicide, the risk for people that are immediately close to them, their risk for suicide does go up. So we want to make sure we have supports in place for those people that loved that person so that they can get the help that they need.
And that goes back to what we were talking about happening at schools.
Yeah.
And you called it a contagion.
Yeah. So AFSP doesn't do a lot of postvention, what we would call postvention, where you go in after somebody dies and work with people. But there's another group called the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. It's not a nationwide. It's just focused on Tennessee. They do a lot of postvention in schools where when somebody dies by suicide, they go in and work with the counselors and they work with the students to come up with plans to keep those students safe and to help them and support them after a suicide death. So that when you talk about suicide, there's prevention, there's intervention, and there's postvention. So we work in each one of those arenas.
Yeah.
AFSP does have a new program coming out called Caring Communities, and that is focused on postvention in the workplace.
Oh.
Because, if there's a suicide death in the workplace, or somebody loses somebody to suicide and they go back to work, people often just don't know what to say to them or how to handle it. So So FSP has created this program that we can deliver to workplaces when they've lost somebody to suicide. We can go out and present this program, and it just kind of helps them know how to relate to that person and support that person through their loss.
We're talking with Shannon Jeems with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Give us a couple of things to know if we have someone who has lost a loved one to suicide.
I think one of the biggest things is just talking to them, letting them say that person's name. When we talk about in our educational programs, say the word suicide. It's okay to say it. It's not a dirty word. If you think somebody's struggling, ask them point blank, are you thinking about suicide? Because that lets them know that you are ready to have that conversation. Because if you shy away from the word suicide and you kind of say, hey, you're not thinking about doing something crazy, are you? Or you're not thinking about hurting yourself, that's going to kind of close them off. Because if I say, you're not thinking about doing something stupid, are you? How likely is it that that person's going to open up to me if I phrase it that way? So, just being honest with them and saying, hey, are you thinking about suicide? Because when we ask them like that, first of all, with children, a lot of people don't like that idea with young people because they think, if you say suicide, you're going to put that idea in their head. Well, I read a study that said, it was a report that just came out in January of this year. They did a survey with high school students in 2024. 25% of the students they surveyed said that they had seriously considered suicide in the past year. 1 in 4. That number blew my mind. I could not believe. That's crazy.
And I bet not 1 in 4 of them had someone ask them about it.
Probably not.
What are warning signs that we need to look out for?
There's things like, one of the big ones people always think of is giving away personal items, isolation, changes in behavior, like we say reckless behavior. Maybe they're doing crazy things like, drinking too much. They start using drugs, not doing activities that used to bring them joy. Maybe they've become less religious. For a lot of people, religion is an important
a strength, something to hold
something
on to.
to drive strength from. But maybe if they're struggling, they've totally stopped all of that.
Don't need it.
Maybe they've stopped doing things that they love to do. Maybe they used to go to baseball games all the time, and now they don't care about baseball. It's not one certain thing, and I certainly don't mean to imply to anybody who's listening that if you've lost someone to suicide, hey, you should have seen the signs, you should have known, because it's not always that cut and dry. And a lot of times we don't see those signs until after that person has died, and then you start doing this post-mortem kind of autopsy thing where everybody starts comparing notes and going, I didn't see that. Or, for example, when my brother died, after he died and we all started talking, we all realized he was sending everybody text messages the week before he died. I got one from him that said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I love you and I'm so proud of you and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whatever, nerd, I love you too, whatever. I didn't think anything about it, but he was telling me goodbye.
Whoa.
And when we were at the hospital with him, I told one of my brothers, I got this text from him last week, and I thought it was kind of weird. And then my other brother said, he texted me too. And then my other brother said, yeah, I got one too. He had texted everybody he loved and told them that he loved them before he left us. So, it's not always that you should see those signs. And I don't ever want to imply that people, missed the boat on that, because we didn't. The week before my brother died, he was the happiest I'd ever seen him.
Wow.
And a lot of times that happens because they've made that decision that they're going to do it, and they don't have to worry about things anymore because they think they've found the solution to their problems. So they do experience an uptick in their mood in the days before they die.
Because they feel like that pain that they're feeling is going to end.
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those are signs. What about risk factors? One is that you said isolation, like people perhaps who live in more rural areas. Is age, gender. What are other risk factors?
So we have psychological risk factors. We have social risk factors. Sometimes when people are experiencing extreme chronic medical issues, that can be a risk factor. We think about life events. Maybe they're going through a relationship breakup or something like that. And I caution that when we talk about risk factors for suicide, there's never just one thing that leads a person to a suicide death. It's usually a conflagration of a bunch of different things. So maybe they've started using drugs and their wife left them and they're in financial trouble and they're experiencing depression. What we know is that 4 out of 5 people who die by suicide had some type of mental troubles before they died, whether it was diagnosed or undiagnosed. And the biggest one is depression. Most people who die by suicide are suffering from some type of depression. The second biggest is bipolar disorder, which I have. So I make sure I go to my psychiatrist every month and I'm on medication management. So, and that was very important to me after my brother died because, through working with AFSP, I found out that the risk factor for families goes up after a suicide death occurs. So I try to make sure that I take very good care of my mental health. Because Matt died in 2012. In 2016, I had an attempt. So I have been on both sides of it. I'm a suicide loss survivor, and I'm also an attempt survivor.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of play both sides of that coin. And one of the things that AFSP is trying to expand out and do a better job of is supporting attempt survivors. Because when AFSP was first formed, it was really focused on people who had lost somebody. But what we realize is there's this whole other population of people that we're not helping, and that's people who've survived their own attempt.
Oh, wow.
So we're working on programming for that group of people, too.
Yeah. I know my mom, I believe she had undiagnosed bipolar disorder. And she had attempted suicide several times when I was a kid. I remember her being taken out in an ambulance and having to stay overnight at hospitals because of, they called it the psych ward or something way back then. But I do remember that. And I remember the impact that it had on us.
Sure.
And as children who see this sort of thing, they don't know how to process that.
No.
And so that's a survivor of someone who's attempted suicide. Is that going to be one of the kind of the things that people can get help with?
Yeah. We have a program called More Than Sad, and it is a program for school-age children that we can go into schools and promote. There's also a version of it for teachers and one for parents. So that one is kind of an all-encompassing program. Talk Saves Lives, we generally focus on high school and above for that program, but we do have More Than Sad, and I believe they're developing even another version for like middle school age children.
Mm-hmm. What do you tell them?
We try to make sure they know that it's okay to ask for help. We try to make sure they know where to go for help.
Where do we go for help?
You can use our website, afsp.org. You can just Google the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and it'll come right up. Also, there's the 988 Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's just like 911, but it's for mental health. All you have to do if you're experiencing a crisis is dial 988, and it will put you in contact with a trained crisis counselor. 9 out of 10 calls are answered in Tennessee. If all the lines are busy, it might roll to somebody outside the state, but we try to keep those local because local people know local resources and they can help you better.
Right.
So the 988 number is a big one.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. It used to be 1-800-273-8235.
Oh, right.
1-800-273-TALK was what it was. But we got it through Congress a couple of years ago. They changed it to 988. So we were really happy with that because now it's much simpler for people to remember if you need help, just 988.
I think we need to spread the word about that.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
even being in the media and having that in my life, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So 988 for
Correct.
mental health crisis.
Yes.
Okay. And then because we're almost out of time, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
What else do you do with our legislators?
Well, I mentioned earlier mental health parity. That was a law that AFSP heavily lobbied for here in Tennessee. Several years ago, we got there's the Jason Flatt Act, which requires teachers to have 2 hours of suicide prevention training every year. AFSP worked with the Jason Flatt Foundation about 7 years ago to expand that. So now anybody who works in a school has to have suicide prevention training, because we started thinking, bus drivers see these kids every day, cafeteria workers see these kids every day.
Yeah.
They're going to know if that child is acting differently because they see them in the line every day.
Yeah.
And they might know as well as a teacher does that, hey, that kid's struggling. So now everybody has to take it. And that was a piece of legislation that we were able to get through the Tennessee General Assembly. So that's one that we were really proud of.
How can we help? You've told us kind of how we can get help. How do we get help from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention? How do we get help from you guys first?
If you want to reach out to our local chapter, you can just Google American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Tennessee. That'll pull our website right up. You can sign up to be a volunteer with us. One of the easiest ways to get involved is to sign up to be a field advocate, which is part of our advocacy arm. And once you sign up to be a field advocate, our national office sends out regular updates on what kind of legislation is moving. And they will provide you with an email template to send to your legislators that sums up the bill. You can add your personal story to it, hit 2 buttons, it populates your address, and it sends it to your legislators so that you can support anything that AFSP is working on at the federal level. So that is one of the very simplest ways to get involved. We also have Out of the Darkness walks. That's our big fundraising effort every year. And we have several coming up this fall. We have walks in Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and several other small ones, Cannon County and Coffee County. So that's a great way to get involved. But if you
Why Out of the Darkness? What does that mean?
because we're trying to bring suicide out of the darkness so that people can talk about it, because it's been in the darkness for a very long time.
And people suffering and feeling like they're completely alone.
Absolutely.
Isolation seems to be one of the biggest contributing factors to a lot of bad things in our lives.
Yes.
Health issues, mental health issues, suicide, a lot of bad things, and it's isolation.
Yeah.
Does it seem like a lot of people feel more isolated today than ever before?
I think since COVID, that's probably the case. I think a lot of people isolated themselves during COVID and kind of just stayed that way.
Yeah.
So, so we're all about getting people out of, into the world and getting this message spread. And we do a lot of virtual trainings, but we will come out and train anywhere, anytime. Our trainings are free. That's one of the things our money that we raise pays for, is for us to be able to go out and provide those trainings free of charge. We will go to churches, civic groups, schools, anywhere we can get our foot in the door. We want to spread the word.
Thank you. That is Shannon Jeems with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Any final thing that you need to add?
If you are alone, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you want to find us and get involved, you can Google American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in Tennessee. And if you're interested in walking with us to raise funds, that's Out of the Darkness Nashville is the walk here locally. Or if you're in another city, you can just Google Out of the Darkness city name, and it will bring you up all the details on the walk in your local area. So if the last thing I want you to remember is that if you're struggling and you need help, we are always there for you. And you can call the crisis hotline at 988. There's somebody there who's ready to listen and ready to help you get the resources you need to get you back to a place where you feel like you can go on, and we want you to go on.
We're going to post some links on our Focus Facebook page. Shannon Jeems with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Please make sure you join us again next week. I'm Anna Marie, and that's Focus.